Hello everybody, Steve Griffiths here, developer of the MTPredictor software program. In today's video I'd like to do a roundup of the USE minis, particularly following on from some of the things we were talking about in yesterday's live training webinar for MTPredictor customers, because it's always good to follow up stuff that we're actually talking about at the time. But before we start on that, I'd like to go over again an advanced trade setup we do in the MTPredictor software program that we call our VSA setup, or volume spike analysis. This is a particularly good setup because it gets you in the direction of what we call the professional money. And there was a great example on the USE minis, particularly the ES, on a 3-minute chart yesterday. So what are we looking for on this? Well, first and foremost, we have red highlights on our volume indicator down the bottom here. This indicates that the bar in question has higher than usual volume, and also is a wide range bar, in other words expanding bar. Now normally that means there's something special going on within that bar. So when do we look at these? Do we look at every single one of them? For example, there was one here, here, here. So there's quite a few times when this happens. For this particular setup, no, we don't. What we require is the actual VSA bar. So for example, this one here that unfolded at 9:48, you can see this was a nice wide range bar coming down here on a lot higher than usual volume or increased volume. So what we're looking for is for this bar here to break or go beyond a psychological important level, in other words a prior pivot. So if we go back to here, we can see that the market made a prior pivot yesterday. If I put a low tag on that low there, you can see there was the low. So this bar here broke down below this low on higher volume. Now normally amateur traders would look at that and say, great, market's moving lower because the volume is increased. We've broken a prior pivot, therefore we'd look to sell. And as you can see, that was exactly the wrong thing to do. So what do we do in MTPredictor? Well, first and foremost, we look that it's broken a prior pivot, which it has. We then go back to that prior pivot, we place our decision point level on that. Again, that's really easy, one click like that. Now remember, this decision point levels are leading indicators, so they're on the chart in advance before the market even gets there. So as this bar was going down here, you knew that this was a potential support level. Now normally the markets will find support or resistance. Support in this case as it's a low DP level, and as you can see, that's exactly what happened. But the important thing about the VSA bar is we look to the bar after the VSA bar, which in this case was the 951 bar. Now if you think about it, if the selling on the 948 bar, or the volume on the 948 bar, was indeed selling, the market would have carried on lower. However, it didn't. It reversed and found support. So that means that the actual volume was actually buying volume. It was actually the professionals buying, selling to weak amateurs. So in other words, it means that the professionals are stepping in, buying this market, and odds on therefore it's going to, in this case, rally. So we have the advantage of MTPredictor in that we first and foremost know the area or the support zone in and around where these reversals are likely to occur. We now need a target for the trade. We know from MTPredictor analysis that we look at the last swing into a higher low, which is this swing here. We come back to this pivot, we put the DP on, and that gave us a target for a potential trade. Remember, this can all be done in advance, and this is what we were talking about during yesterday's webinar before the market even got up to this level. We can then place our manual risk reward around this this potential setup to see how good it is. So for this, we can just do one click above the bar of entry, one click on the bar of the stop. We then come back to our target price. Again, this can all be done before we even enter the trade. You can see here the potential profit at this level was twice the initial risk. This is what we normally like to see at least before we consider a trade. Our position sizing takes care of the number of contracts to keep our initial risk small under control. So there's the trade setup, which actually had you long from, if I scroll forward, in fact the very low of the day. So that caught the very low of the day on the 3-minute ES, and in fact actually our profit target, which was here, caught the very high of the day. So there you go, looking back at this now, had a brilliant trade catching the low of the day to then sell at pretty much the high of the day, so you couldn't ask any more as a day trader. But the point being is that this is one of the more advanced trades we have within the MTPredictor software, and we have the tools in the software for you to not only be able to find these trade setups with our VSA indicator on our volume, but also anticipate areas of where the market's going to reverse, and also have a target price of where it's going to go. That allows you to set up the trade and evaluate its risk reward. So all these additional tools are vital if you're actually going to trade this. It's all well and good knowing that this particular pattern is good because the professionals are stepping in at this time, but you need to be able to evaluate it to get a good potential trade out of it. So that was the first trade we had yesterday, and I thought it was a very good one to show some of the more advanced tools and techniques that are available for the more experienced MTPredictor customers. Before I end the video, I'd just like to quickly follow up on a trade on the YM that we were talking about in the webinar. On the YM, we had a 15-minute resistance the day before up at the top here, and I came down to this last low pivot and I was suggesting that the market was likely to carry on down into this DP support zone. So we're actually looking at a potential short trade on the YM. Now, one of our customers at the time during the webinar said if you went to the 5-minute YM chart, he was actually looking at a standard TS2 sell setup, which was here because the STF was red, and that fitted in nicely with my 15-minute analysis. In other words, from that high level potentially going down to this low level here. So if we place the analysis on this, you can see that this was the setup, a TS2 sell. Again, position sizing, taking care of the number of contracts to keep our initial risk small and under control. And the market went down and actually tagged our first target, which was the minimum wave 5 WPT, almost, well, just before the close at about, what was the time there? Came in there at about 3:30, so towards the end of the day. We didn't make our target down here, our large degree target down here on the 15-minute chart, but still this was at the first target for this trade. STF was weak, therefore standard traders would be coming out at that profit target. And as you can see, that actually nailed the very low of the day on the YM. If I scroll out, there was the low of the day. So what a great place to actually look to bank profits at the low of the day. More importantly than that, the profit was approximately 3 times greater than the initial risk. Again, position sizing allowing you to have profits that are larger than the losses or initial risks. And I particularly wanted to follow up on this trade because it was mentioned at the time by one of our customers during our live training webinar. And it's always good to follow up on trades like this, particularly when our customers have highlighted these in a live webinar. So a very good day for MTPredictor yesterday with a lovely TS2 sell on the 5-minute YM, and as I've already highlighted earlier, we had a lovely VSA set up earlier in the day on the 3-minute ES that again caught the low of the day to take profits at the high of the day, and this was a great example of our VSA setup, which is a trade setup we like to follow, particularly on the USE minis and European futures. It works very well on that, but because it's a trade setup that is designed in and around going with the professional money, and that's always a good position to be in. So hopefully this has been a good video to show you some of the more advanced techniques that we use in the MTPredictor software program.